Mr. Screwvala, how are you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Okay, so if we could just sort of start immediately, I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about upGrad and the genesis behind upGrad, how you sort of approached it, and how it's been doing so far.
I mean, the quick genesis is that once I divested and moved out of media and entertainment in 2013, I think I made a few investments, and I realized that being a private equity venture capitalist or an angel was definitely not my cup of tea, and I was a doer. And I was very proud of some of the investments we made there, and I nurtured them. But really, I wanted to get back into starting something from scratch. And of course, many people question that really at this stage and age, after you've done something, do you want to start all over again? And I think, yes, that was an extremely exciting one. And obviously, it had to be outside of my core domain expertise. So I spent the better part of the next 1 year looking at various sectors. And one of the things I was also very clear is that I did not want to be the CEO of any company that I founded. And that's primarily because during that interim period, I had made a commitment to spend a fair bit of my time and a lot of our resources into a family foundation, which is the Swadesh Foundation, which my wife, Zarina, and I have started. So with that in mind, I think it narrowed down to education overall. And then in education, after that, the first thing for me was to sort of look for co-founders. In the 1 year that I was researching it, I met with Mayank Kumar, who then turned, and both of us became co-founders later on. And then Ravi and Falgun joined in. So pretty much in quest of something that I wanted to start on, did some research. Serendipity led me and Mayank to come together. And that's how upGrad was born about a little over 4 years back, close to 5 years back. Right. And I think we were very clear that there is a lot of disruption to be done. My strengths, I thought I brought to the table was building businesses at scale, strategy and strategic thinking. Obviously, also the experience of building a company so that it wouldn't be a startup from day one. It would be starting up, but it wouldn't be a startup. And then the elements of brand building and credibility. Mayank came in with a lot of 10 years of experience in the education field. And our focus was to really look at disrupting the higher education market. Because the K-12 has a lot of regulations and, there are peripheral things like content that can happen. But our focus was really to do something in the higher education, the working professional. The overall total addressable market there is almost what I would call 100 crores or a billion people, but 100 crore people who are in the workforce in some form or the other. Many have got into the workforce at a very early stage because after their 10th or after their undergrad, they feel the need to get into a job and earn for the rest of the family, but haven't really been able to upskill themselves. So this whole gap of lifelong learning is really what we took a position on and started up with upGrad.
Right, and one of the things that, as opposed to traditional startups who've gone ahead and raised funding, upGrad has raised funding as well, but one of the sort of different things you've done is that you have taken an inorganic growth path as well. You have made a couple of acqui-hires, CohortPlus being one of them. And you recently announced that, you're looking at making 2 or 3 acquisitions this year. Could you talk to us about that strategy?
Yes. So, right now we're fully self-funded. And I think that was because I was fortunate enough and had a bank balance that could support that and fund it. Right. That helps you build a certain sense of clarity of vision. I think investors bring an incredible amount to the table, but at an early stage, the focus then kind of shifts. The priorities keep getting shifted and focused as we go along into the whole thought. So from that perspective, it was very important that we could build the company as we saw it for the first 3 to 4 years from a vision perspective. Now, and the process is that I think there's a lot of growth opportunities that have come around. And we are very clear that we want to build organically. But given the present situation and the change over the last 4 to 6 weeks in the market with the coronavirus, I just find a lot of many people are in the edtech sector. And there are a lot of incredible entrepreneurs. At this point, they may not be able to grow. So to me, the strategy was a lot of people will find it difficult to actually move forward. And the idea would be not to go out to buy them for the purpose of paying them, to buy them in, but actually people who we feel are very critical to our growth, whether it's in terms of the variety of our courses or a tech platform or a consumer base with these 3 criterions, how we can up the ante, bring them in and say, whatever you had your dreams but couldn't find funding, come in and fund it. I'm a strong believer that the whole is bigger than the sum of the parts. So I'm not one that wants to make 5 acquisitions where we own 30 or 40 or even 70% in a company, because it becomes tricky, because then you're feeding the beast and then you have to anyway consolidate. So, and I think many people have done this break up into subsidiaries part, and I think it doesn't work, because the whole, if you want to create value, the whole is always bigger than the sum of the parts.
And then in that case, of course, when you go and talk to potential partners for this strategy, they obviously would want to sort of look at your previous acquisitions as well. How have those turned out?
So those have really been acqui-hires. They've worked well
Yeah.
because of the simple reason that they're acqui-hires. So people come in and then we've really funded. So in a sense, this would also become an acqui-hire, because at the end of the day, they're coming into the company, having a much broader vision. Though I see this differently, as those acqui-hires we had very plans of what we wanted to do, where we wanted to build an app, and then CohortPlus came into that. Here, it would be more about what they've built and how we can take that to the next level, but within the vision of upGrad. And therefore, it would not be come in and work through the system, but it could be almost like run it independently, but not as a separate company.
As part of the upGrad family.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, of course, I'm sure that these talks are ongoing and you may not want to divulge some of the details, but could you give us a general overview of what kind of companies that you're in talks with?
No, as I said, it's in these 3 criteria, where either there's a consumer base that we want to acquire and take it to the next level, or a tech platform or a university affiliation, or the third one is really where we want to broaden the base of our courses, finance, legal, and something else there, and what we would do there. It'll be in these 3 parameters.
Okay, and when you talk about it's actually, my next question to you was going to be about what your take on the edtech sector at large is, leaving aside the current crisis. But you just mentioned a couple of minutes ago that this current crisis has forced a sort of paradigm shift in the entire sector. So could I ask you how you see this going forward, the sector at large?
So, I mean, to my earlier point, when I said paradigm shift, it was more like for most startups that may not have been funded but are at core or may not get further funding, that was the opportunity. That would be outside of edtech also, but my interest is only in edtech. But it could be in multiple areas if one were to do that. But I'm not wearing a VC or PE hat on. It was much more strategic. But overall, I'd say that the entire sector here today, firstly, there has always been a skepticism towards online, whether it will be as good as offline, and I think that cobweb is being sorted very quickly. Second, I think there was a certain sense that, especially in working professions and in the higher education, that yes, it's something I do need to do, but if not today, I can do it tomorrow. So that sense of lethargy or ambivalence has moved to urgency in a very clear manner, because I think people are realizing that over the next 1 to 2 years, when really jobs become a little bit more scarce, how do I be in the top 50 percentile of any company for me to make sure that I do have my job? Because somewhere down the line, either through redundancy or job cuts or economic reasons, and then, of course, some of the new careers, the bottom 30% may not be that. So how do I not, under any circumstances, be in the 50% at the bottom, but be in the 50% at the top? So that's why that urgency has moved ahead. And universities and corporates, both who were skeptical and not really open, if not, I would say, to online and a wait and watch approach, are now becoming self-evangelists. So, I would need to convince corporates that online is as good as, if not offline, but now actually they're coming forward. They want to do it for their students. Colleges have already started evangelizing that partly by force. But we need to be clear that online is not about just taking whatever you're running in your classroom and then putting it online through a guest lecture. That's not online. So the present transition where people at schools and colleges are going online, that is really, instead of coming to the school and working with the lecturer, but the real online is the depths of investing in your tech platform, which we have done in the learning experience, where you have counselors, you have a rating system, you have the grading system. All of it is online, and not just a camera that puts on the professor. And instead of coming to school today or to college today or to university today, you did that. So that is an evolution that's going to take place. So I think that's really where it's going through the roof in many ways. The only caution to the note today would be, today, and I think in 2000, while we're in the present COVID situation and people feel that they're not very certain about their jobs, whether they would want to make a financial commitment to learn right now, even though they know it's more urgent than ever to be in that top 50 percentile, is, I think, the dichotomy that we need to solve for.
Then is upGrad looking to position itself as maybe not a replacement, but as an augmentation? Or could you just tell us about how upGrad is looking to position itself vis-a-vis the INSEAD model, so to speak, wherein I am a working professional, get out of college, take a job for a few years, then decide that I want to upskill myself somehow, and I go into a course for a couple of years at a very prestigious university abroad.
So I think the key is that people need to take the call is whether they want to take 2 years off their working career to do what they want to do. And I think people are now realizing more so. So there's an entire large percentile that can't afford the high-profile colleges. Okay, that's still a sliver. So there's almost 90 for every 5 people that are going there. There are 95 people who can't even afford to do that. So firstly, this opens up that for those same level of faculty, for that same level of professors, and for that same level of prestigious university, because our degrees are with global universities also, the other 95% can do that clearly and absolutely. So that's really that large market that is opened up. The second one is even for those 5% of the people, do they really want to take a year, 2 years off their working cycle and come back a little later? Yes, there's already a small sliver that may want to go abroad, and even that actually is sort of reducing in its ambition levels. But those people can actually do equivalent of it. They didn't think online would give them that same experience, but now they're seeing that the peer-to-peer learning, the sort of technology platforms that allows you to learn is as good as offline. And your faculty members could be the best in the world versus where you thought they were there. So outside of the top 15 or 20 global universities, it's becoming equally evident for everybody that it's a much more affordable one. And I don't need to lose 2 years of my salary and payload, which is a massive opportunity cost, because then you go into a different kind of a debt structure.
And then the biggest, probably not the biggest, but one of the biggest points of skepticism that edtech companies face is that they do not have the same kind of, maybe, I'm not sure if brand recall is the correct word, but definitely the kind of impact that an offline or that a brick and mortar institution would have. So is this the current situation that we're in? Is this a sort of baptism by fire that edtech companies are facing?
It is a baptism by fire for both sides, I would say. Okay. And I think that's a good part about it. So firstly, I wouldn't quite agree that there's no question of brand recall, because for example, in upGrad, we've tied up with global universities and the best of the Indian universities. So actually, we're having A plus B. So it is an upGrad, but it's coming via IIIT Bangalore or BITS Pilani or NMIS or IIT Ghaziabad or IIT Chennai, Madras. So and or Liverpool or Deakin or so I think if you look at it from that perspective, it's actually an A plus B. So they're getting that. It's not that this is not a brand that I can recall, because for them, the brand is also the IIIT Bangalore or IIT Madras, as the case may be, and an MBA is something different. So it's a combination of both. The main other problem was, will corporates understand that? And I think that's happening in a hurry.
And so, could you elaborate on that? What is the
acceptability? Well, the acceptability that's coming from corporate now that they're realizing actually that, hey, it's not that bad. It's a little bit like 20% of what we will do to go for personal meetings, for travel meetings, either domestically or from Goregaon to Mumbai or from Gurgaon to Noida or from Bombay to London, is going to reduce 20 to 25%, because over the last 4 weeks, everyone's established that some part of your business you actually can do quite digitally and quite effectively and quite well, right? So if you take the similar analysis into this world, that's when you'll see that even the corporates have realized, and the penny dropping moment for them has been, that actually I can have my workforce. I don't need to send them for 6 months to Manipal or somewhere else and lose them. I can make them as productive and yet give them an online course to do. So I'm upgrading them while I'm using full use for them on one side. Or B, they're joining in on day one. Then for the next 4 months, I'm sending them again to an offsite to learn, whereas actually they can be productive. They can take an online course before they come on board, because that's what I would tell them to do. And then I know by that 3 months, who are the people who are really going to stick with me past 1 year, past 2 years, past 3 years. And when they come and join me on day one, they hit the ground running. I've saved that 3 months of salary that would be unproductive. And I've saved the entire cost of the whole offline training, the boarding, the lodging that goes with that.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the one thing to say is that the story for edtech is just starting. It's not really it's not taking a different path as such, but it's just writing a new chapter.
No, I think it started 2 to 3 years back in full force. I think its establishment, recognition, evangelism, and acceptance has been accelerated tenfold.
Okay. Okay, and if we can sort of just quickly move on to your own personal investments. I mean, you have made a few of them apart from, of course, upGrad. Yeah. So could you just give us a bit about those investments in general? I mean, what your philosophy behind some of them were, or what was...
They were a different philosophy at a different time. I think Lenskart for me was really the entrepreneur and the leader, and a business where even at that stage I felt impact was an important part of what I was doing at that stage, mostly. So if I look at Lenskart, it was in the lens space. The fact that it was a founder, very, very, very large addressable market, and a player that has maintained almost, I would say, not a monopoly, but really the only player. Most other spaces are crowded, but for some reason that whole optical space has not been crowded, even though you had a Titan that was part in there. So that's one. If I look at the agriculture investment we made with I&I Farms, again, that was impact at the back of my mind in some form or the other. That one did it and moved forward. So I think it's really been a little bit of that, and then based on the founders. But it was a very short-lived one, I would say. It was that 1 year in which one accelerated did that, and then I realized I'm a doer.
And what about Unilaser then? I mean,
so Unilaser is just a brand. It's a holding company in the brand perspective. It's not an active operating company.
But it does manage the investments that you've made, or those are separate?
I'm sorry?
Does it manage the investments that you've made?
Yes. But it's a team of one. It's a team of one. It's not some large. I'm not a fund. It's not something that I've raised external money from at all. Mm-hmm. So that gives me the total flexibility to do what one wants to do.
And do you have any plans of taking that forward, or is upGrad?
No, not at all. No plans of being a private equity investor or going out there to raise funds. I think the edtech sector is a massive opportunity. If I think I created a $1.4 billion company in media 10 years back, the opportunity to do 20x of that in edtech is what attracts me the most.
And what do you see, if I can just ask you as a final question, whenever we do come out of this situation, whether it's the lockdown or whether it's just we finally managed to find a vaccine against this strain of the virus, then what do you see going forward in terms of edtech?
I see it already racing forward. I see this period to be almost like a 2-year period, right? I mean, I've said this before, we're in the present COVID period, and then there's going to be a post-COVID period, because the present COVID period is going to be the situation where people will keep adapting, not having a final solution to things. What I'm saying is, I think that if we can excel in wartime, imagine what we can do in peacetime, is the only motto I have when I'm talking to my 930 colleagues and my co-founders.
And then this is, and specifically to upGrad, could you tell us a bit about where you see upGrad in the next 2 years post-COVID?
Yeah, so I think this, right now we're growing literally at the rate of about 150% per annum, which we should be able to take it to 250% per annum growth rate, number one. This is without the entire new initiative we have, which is on degrees, which is huge. So that's the second big vertical for us, where the undergrad and post-graduation degrees, because now the government has opened that up and said the top 100 universities should do that. And I think they'll open it up even more, where they might even remove the restriction on top 100 universities. So, and we just need 3 or 4 phenomenal partners. And that base is humongous, because that addressable market is double and triple. And the third thing I want to solve for is that while our ARPUs are high in upGrad, because the learning experience is steep and it is something very serious business, I can't shortchange that. I can't offer a cheap course, because it is 11 months. If you want to be a data scientist and you want to change your career, you need to do that. How do I find a fiscal remedy that attracts people, that says it's a no-brainer for me to now do this course versus taking on that investment of 2.5 lakhs, which is the ARPU? And that's the third vertical, which can open that up. So if I'm getting 10,000 students to join me every quarter, how do I take that to 250,000 students? Because now I've just made it a lot more feasible for them. So it's a little bit like the automobile market opened up when EMI opened up. Before that, it was nothing, and so on and so forth. That one single financial solution where people will feel in their minds that the ROI can come over 3 years and I can pay over 3 years. We're working with that with financial companies, fintech companies, EMI players. And that's the third big one, because that will open it up in a very different way. And the fourth one for us is enterprise, which is really that we started as a B2C company, but actually B2B is where most people otherwise started. So once I can get corporates and take their training needs, then that's a massive opportunity for us. And then lastly is the geography, which is all of this, if we can do well here, why can't we do it at least equally well in all of South Asia, Middle East, Southeast Asia, and Africa?
So there are expansion plans on the cards there?
Yes, actually, we would have started looking internationally this financial year, if it wasn't for COVID, because it's definitely not a good time when you can't move around for 3 to 6 months to build your hub. And two, the degrees came in also. So in the last budget, when degrees came in, we thought there was such a big vertical that we should spend this year focusing on degrees. And then COVID happened. And then we said, anyway, geographically, I think everyone's going to take 3 to 6 months before I can build teams, hire people, and not induct people digitally.
So when this international expansion does end up happening, initially you'll be looking at the rest of South Asia before moving on to any other continent?
The 4 territories I mentioned. It's really South Asia, Southeast Asia, Middle East, and Africa. And today, without design, 9% of our students at upGrad, out of the 25,000 students who've sort of graduated, 9% of them actually come from outside of India. And that's completely because we just digitally market. There's nothing that we are in any place. And some of them even come from the US, which is a 12-hour time difference, and they still take our courses live and unscheduled. So that's given us a good path that Africa's, all these 4 territories are really interesting territories for us.
Okay, I think that would be, international expansion is always a good note to end a conversation on. But thank you so much for taking out the time to speak with us today.
Thank you. Bye then.
Bye. Thank you.